Welcome back to another episode of The Root of All Success. I am the Real Jason Duncan. I'm glad you're here. I've got a Nashville icon in the entrepreneurial space with me today, Aaron Stokes. Aaron, thank you for being here today, man.
Appreciate it. I don't know about an icon, but
Well, so if you have been in Nashville for any amount of time and you listen to the radio, talk radio specifically 997, you have for years heard your voice on the radio
yeah.
doing the commercials for Eurofix. And you are exactly that person. There is no, you didn't go up or down for that commercial. It is exactly, it is exactly what you sound like in real life.
Yeah.
So your story, and which is what we're going to talk about today on this show, is you went from living in a single wide to becoming a mechanic to now owning, I don't know what the number is, of mechanics and body shops, et cetera, and running one of the nation's, if not the nation's, largest mastermind for shop owners.
Correct.
So going from barely making it to now millions of dollars a year in revenue and income, not just revenue, but income.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about it. Tell us about the early days of Aaron Stokes.
Yeah. So where should I start? I'll just say that 8th grade education, never went to high school, never went to college, didn't have a dad around when I was young, pursued chasing, I don't know what you would call it, but affirmation, somebody saying they were proud of me at a young age. And so I found myself working on cars because if I fixed it, someone would say, wow, good job. I was also doing remodeling at the time. And so remodeling and working on cars both at the same time. Had to decide on one, and so decided on repairing cars. Started doing that in a little one-car garage in downtown Franklin. Then I moved to a barn and I upgraded to 3,000 square foot barn with no electricity, dirt floors, and I poured some gravel and laid some sport court down, but every time I'd jack up a car, I'd lift it up with my little $30 MVP jack from Walmart, and little wheels would break through the plastic floor, so I'd have to put plywood, like a 4x8 sheet, under the front end of a car where I most often worked, and did that for probably, I was in that barn. I finally got electricity in it, but I was in that barn till 2004, from 99 to 04.
And how'd you learn how to work on cars?
Self-taught. I never went to school.
So you just started wrenching.
I've always
been that?
Yeah, I've always been self-taught on everything. I've never been that guy that reads and studies. I read a lot now, but as a young man, and even anything new now, I kind of like to figure it out on my own before I even go and read from experts. So that's just how I've always been wired. Like even with speaking, I've never been to anybody's speaking class or gone to somebody else's theory on how to teach or whatever. It's all been just, well, that didn't work, and so I try it again, a different way. And so just kept doing that. Did that up through 04. 04 I moved into town, and then went up till 2009 with just one store still, and then 2009 I opened my second location, 2011 my third, 2012 I got stolen from. I also got into car sales, and somebody somebody defrauded me. It ended up being one of the largest cases of fraud and theft in the state of Tennessee. And then
was that a business partner or what?
No, it was an employee. And then after that, I had experimented with some masterminds and hosted them, and everybody said, this is the best mastermind I've ever been to, and I never thought to start one. And then probably 2016, I ran into some people, and they started pursuing me, saying, hey, you should try starting this. And it was just as hey, you should try starting this and teach people. It wasn't like you should try starting this and growing something huge. They never said that. And I did, and I think I got to 16, 17 people trying to sell it one way. It never really grew much. And then I flipped it around and started offering some stuff for free, started selling part of it, and just kind of rearranged the package. And then it blew up. And now, I don't know, I've got probably 1,100 clients at all my levels and probably about 1,600 locations, and about $3.5 billion in revenue that we're coaching. Like it's probably $3.3 billion now that we influence every month. And I don't even know how many employees. I mean, well north of 10, 12,000 employees that we represent. And so, never saw it coming. Never saw it coming at all.
That's crazy, man. So Eurofix is the big brand that you started, and it was the original one, the one right there off I-65 south of town.
No, that's the second.
That's the second one. So where was the original Eurofix?
The original Eurofix was in a barn, and then
when you went into town,
and then it moved to a warehouse on the south side of Franklin. Then from there, it moved to downtown Franklin. Then from there, it moved to Royal Oaks. So it's the original store, but a customer doesn't say, "Oh, they relocated that store." A customer says they closed that store and opened that store. So they don't think Franklin's my oldest, but it's my oldest. 100 Oaks is my longest standing single location that you're thinking of against the interstate.
Gotcha. It's right there next to Carvana.
Yeah.
And
well, no. See, Carvana's next to us.
That's right. Because you were there first.
We were there first.
Yeah. So Carvana's next to you.
It drives me nuts. They're like, "Oh, you're next to Carvana." I'm like, "No," but no, we've been there since 2009. So that's my 15-year-old store. That's the longest physical building we've been in. But yeah, I've been doing it 25 years. 13 locations now between body shops and auto repair shops, Euro shops and domestic shops, or American Asian shops, general repair. And so we got a little bit of everything. And we coach body shops and general repair, and we coach diesel shops, transmission shops, wrap shops, all of it. So.
Why Euro? What was it about doing European cars that...
I started working on European cars. I started working on Saabs, and then went from Saabs to Volvos, then Saab, Volvo, Audi, Volkswagen. But Saab was my initial start.
Is it because you had a Saab or something?
I had a Saab, started flipping them and selling them, and then those people would be like, "Man, my car keeps breaking. Will you work on it?" And I was like, "Well, yeah." And so I started working on their cars, and would do it on the side for their daughter, the husband, the wife, the parents, and try to get things taken care of and get them back on the road. And then people started saying, "Man, you should do this for a living." I said, "Wow, never thought of that."
What were you doing for a living at the time?
Construction. And I'd flip cars, on the weekends. And so it was one of those things where I don't know, I think the best things in my life that have happened to me, I never saw coming. They were black swan events. Like, I did not see doing a coaching business, but I experimented with it and it went great. I was like, "I don't want to do that. It sounds like too much work." But I just did one weekend and everybody loved it. And then I never saw myself, I wanted to be an architect, but then when my parents got divorced and I was on my own and I was young and I didn't have any opportunity, I ended up just saying, "Well, crap, I'm a blue collar guy the rest of my life. I'm going to dig ditches or whatever." And so it was being a mechanic, it was being, a grease monkey, or a contractor, hanging drywall, building decks. That was my big thing. And before that, I broke horses when I was a kid, from like 15 to 19 years old. I did that. So I was always just kind of a man's man, kind of not dressed like this, and doing outdoorsy blue-collar stuff. And that's who I relate still to this day. I find myself getting comfortable in the white-collar crowd, but I still find myself attracted to, I could flip that switch in a second to go back to blue-collar.
Yeah.
And be able to stand around in a circle with a bunch of guys, who dip in and ding, doing their thing, and to be able to jump in with them and have fun, crack jokes, that is still very comfortable for me. Yeah. And I've always had a respect and a genuine care for the blue collar worker.
I think I remember you saying that Mike Rowe had spoken at one of your events.
Yeah, Mike Rowe spoke at our event and he killed it.
And so
was great.
How did you and he have a big affection for the blue collar?
Yeah.
It's not an industry, but that side of American, of the economy. What did you guys, tell me about what you guys talked about, because that sounds like something he would really...
Oh man, Mike, I gotta say, just off the record, Mike, well, it's on the record, but whatever. But, Mike is amazing. He's a kind person. He's relatable. He gives respect. He hung out and talked. He shook my kids' hands, talked to them, spoke with us for an hour and a half the night before. Probably the number one hit of any speaker we've brought in was Mike Rowe. I mean, hands down. Yeah. Everybody loved Mike. So that's that part of it. But as we talked privately, and then even when we talked on stage, he told funny stories, but when we talked privately, he was very concerned with the culture of blue collar, because he understood, like we do, but most guys don't, he understood that if you shift the culture's view of the blue collar guy, then ultimately the pay will follow. And we have people making all this money as a doctor or a dentist, an engineer, or whatever. And then they're blown away when they find out their buddy next door who's a mechanic makes $150K a year. And they're an attorney making $82,000 a year at a small firm. And they're like, oh my gosh, how are you making that much money? No student loan debt, and all that. And so it's interesting to me how the trades here don't have as much respect. But in Europe and a lot of other countries, trades are a huge deal, massive deal. And the information is exchanged through relationship, not through books. I mean, everybody, even in our group, it makes fun of all the auto repair. I won't get into the lingo, but all of the auto repair standards, they think they're a joke. Real life is you go work for another mechanic and you're side by side and this guy teaches you. And he gets what's in his head into your head. That's where the knowledge happens.
Why do you think here we don't have the same level of respect for blue collar as opposed to Europe in the trade?
The free market has done part of it. And I'm a big capitalist, but there's good and bad that comes with it. If you're a doctor and I'm a doctor, I don't slam you and go, man, don't go see that Jason guy. He's gonna cut your foot off instead of treating it. I don't tell him that. There's this mutual respect, and there's a respect because we're like, holy crap, that was hard to go through med school. That was hard to get here. It was hard to get our own practice, to get a building, get a lease signed, yada yada yada. Well, these auto repair shop guys, they know it's hard, but they get really, really scared because there's no industry saying, there's no standard saying this is what the price should be. And because of that, even body shops have insurance company tell them what the price should be.
Yeah.
And so what happens is an auto repair shop starts dropping, it's a race to the bottom. That's the only thing they know to do to get the sale. So they start dropping their prices and they squeeze their margins, which is all part of being a capitalist-free society. And so they start squeezing margin until there's no margin to win the sale. They don't even realize they're not making money. In their mind, they're like, oh, I'm paying my bills. I don't want to be a rip-off, a con artist. And so what happened was that in conjunction with auto repair being seen as an emergency, really set up a bad combo for people to start thinking we take advantage of people in an emergency, when so does a doctor. In fact, that's all a doctor does. Half of ours is service. But it caught on and it's just stuck ever since, and it's in our industry. And so I'm just trying to eradicate it.
Well, so your 1,100 members in Shop Fix Academy are all blue collar, right? For the most part.
Yes, sir.
I mean, they're blue. That's just like you. I mean, your collar is bluish white, even because you've moved in. But you're running other masterminds for coaches that are not in the automotive industry. That's all white collar stuff. But your feet are both firmly planted in the blue collar world. As a blue collar earner and a blue collar industry supporter, when was it that you had an awareness of like, holy crap, I've made it financially? Like, was there a moment where you were like, wow, I made $100,000 this year? Or, because there's so many of us that are looking, I want to make six figures.
Yeah, I can tell you, here we are, at the end of 24, I remember back in 2011, I had 2 locations, and my Franklin store did $160,000 in a month and netted $40,000, and my Hundred Oaks location did $224 and netted $60,000, and I made $100,000 that month, and I knew it by like the 12th of the following month. I freaked out. It was March of 2020. I'm sorry, not 2020. March of 2011. Never forgotten it. And I don't remember every month's revenue, but those big ones you never kind of forget.
Yeah.
And I remember that happening, and I called up my wife and I said, babe, we just made $100,000. And she's like, yes, so? And I said, in a month. Like I was freaking out. And I never forgot it. It rocked me. And then in 2012, ironically, when I got stolen from and when I made a bunch of money, that year was my first year I almost made $1 million. And I was 32, 33 years old. No education, never been to high school or college. I mean, never even went to freshman year of high school. And I had made, I think it was $964,000 that year. It was my best year to that point. And this is now, 13, 14 years ago. And I made that money and I was like freaking out. And in that same year, I got stolen from. And it was You get up on one side of the bed, you feel like a winner. On this side of the bed, you feel like a loser. And it was a very weird dynamic.
So tell us about the stolen from. What happened? How did that?
Oh my gosh, that's a complicated one.
It was an employee.
That's step one. Yes, it was an employee. So I had decided I was at my third location, and I'd been opening stores, and I said, you know what, this is a lot of work. I want to spend more time with my family. I got this bright idea. Let's open up a used car lot selling used cars in a country bumpkin town. And it's where one of my locations was. It was a country town. And let's sell used cars in this country town. And we're open Saturdays, because apparently I'm working only Monday through Friday and seeing my family as much as I was a horrible idea. And I opened that thing up, and I couldn't get it going for that first year. And I met this guy, and I brought him on board, and he had his way with our business. And without getting into the technicality of it, he did a practice called bruising, and he was able to move values of cars around. And long story short, I ended up finding out by the time I cut him loose that he had stolen or defrauded, meaning sometimes had sold a car to a customer far below what it was worth, but moved money around to make it look like it was something else. But probably $675,000. And then I borrowed on a credit line another $500,000, kept on my cash in my checking account. So now I'm up to $1,175,000. And like the $675,000, I still remember my bookkeeper, I brought her back in, and she said, hey, like 24 hours later, it's at least $75,000. I was like, what? And then I remember like on the second day, she goes, it's north of 160. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like I didn't hear 675 at once. It was over the course of about 9 days till she found it all, and she got to 675. And when she got to $500,000, I started getting sick to my stomach, and then it kept going. He still worked for me. I was waiting till we got all the info before I was going to drive over there and can him. So I canned him, and then we found more in past P&Ls later, and that total came up to $1,175,000 with that $500,000 I had to put in. And then it took me another probably $200,000 to eventually shut down the car lot. So it ended up being $1,375,000 and just under $1,400,000. And then I had a bookkeeper who was super stressed out, and bless her heart, she's handling everything. He was buried. I'm out saving the company, and while she's just freaking out, everybody's calling. Why aren't y'all paying your bills? Why aren't you paying your bills? I'm behind on rent. I'm behind on insurance, behind on parts bills, behind on sales tax, income tax, payroll tax, you name it. I was behind on it, everything. And she's just fielding these calls, just trying to handle it. And I'm out in the field, just at my shops, trying to turn it around, correcting, training, everything. But I was depressed. I was pretty beat down.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
I finally got it. It's the brand new Relay credit card. So check it out. I'm gonna do a little unboxing for you so you can check this out. So here we go. Nice little case, kind of like the American Express. They're not playing. They're doing it right. Oh, look at this. There's a quote right inside that says, "Success is having to worry about every damn thing in the world except money." Johnny Cash. That's pretty good. I've not heard that one. Oh, this is nice. A little thing on the back, up to 1.5% cash back, no annual fees or interest, 30-day billing cycle. And there it is. It's the Relay credit card. It's a Visa. So I'm not going to show you my number, but there it is. Look at that. Boom. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/relay.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
And during that process, I remember one point, it got so bad, we couldn't make payroll. And I went up front, I pulled my wallet out, and I'm like, I count up all my credit cards, and I just start 1, 2, 3, counting them all up. And I could get $90,000 on my credit cards. And I went up front, and I swiped every credit card, and I got $90,000 on my own credit card machine and made payroll. 2 weeks later, I pay semi-monthly, so 2.5 weeks later, couldn't make payroll again. And I remember
This is at a car dealership.
this is my whole company, all my locations,
The
because
whole-
all my locations now are writing the checks to bail out the
This
car lot.
one car lot caused the
Oh,
dominoes of
Because
everything.
by the way, it was in like $1.4 million. The whole thing went down in 90 days. It wasn't like it was strung out over 2 years. It was like instant. And I had just remodeled a location, bought a bunch of loaner cars, just built a house. Like it was like the best timing. Like I just laid out cash everywhere.
Oh.
So then here I am, you know, struggling, trying to figure out what to do. And at this stage, my bookkeeper's fielding phone calls and she's freaking out. And she decides to just not pay the feds and not pay my 941 payroll tax because they never call.
No, they don't.
And
Until
so
they do.
instead, she pays everybody else. Well, I was very good at P&Ls, but I wasn't good at balance sheets. And here I am going, man, it's getting better. You know, she would give me an entire sheet on all of my payables, and that's getting lower and lower. And I'm, man, we're turning the ship here. I mean, things are getting better. We're going to round the bend here. We're on our way. All right. No bueno. All of a sudden I get a phone call. I still remember this guy's name. I won't say it. But this is so-and-so with the Internal Revenue Service. And if you ever get that call, you remember that guy's name. You'll
Yeah.
never forget it. And I get that call and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I have a little shot of adrenaline. But I'm like, we're good on that. You know, I'll go touch base with her. And one time she had told me she was going to make our payroll tax payment late, 4 days late. It was on a Monday. She's going to pay it on a Friday. She never followed up with me. What I didn't know was she never made it Friday, and she never made it ever again after that.
How many months had passed?
8 months. It was close to $900,000. It was $875,000. I had a lot of payroll back then, and well, still do, but I had a significant amount back then for a small business. And so I'm freaking out. Long story short, they dropped the hammer on me, and I got so many more stories, but this one, they just dropped the hammer. He's going to come and look at the cars in my garage, come to my house, you know, everything. I chose to sell my home. He couldn't force me to sell my home. This is something for your listeners. If the IRS ever comes after you, I hope it doesn't, but if they do, check signers are everything. My wife was not a signer on the checking accounts. Because she was not a signer on the checking accounts, even though she owned 50% of the company, her 50% ownership in our home kept them from taking our home. So they couldn't do anything. However, he also said he was going to garnish 100% of my profits until that debt was paid, which with penalties and interest was $1.6 million. And so by now, everything has got fees and penalties, and it's just starting to blow up. And I remember at one point I was $5.5 million in non-mortgage, commercial bad debt. I'd taken out all the short-term loans, the cash advances. I mean, it was really, really bad. I'm still making $1.4 million a year.
Personally, or?
Yeah, the whole thing combined on my K1. But I could not get ahead because the debts all showed up in short-term. Now, where I made the mistake is I could have knocked this all out in a year had I just said, I'm not paying anybody. This is the payment plan I'm going to do. This is what I teach people now to do when I coach them. And I could have set this all up with a payment plan, forced them into this, how much I can mail a week. I'm a big believer of when you're in trouble, paying them weekly because they see how often the checks come and they believe you. It builds a pattern, and you can string it out longer. And I should have done that. Instead, I would let someone freaking me out and squawking make me go take out a high interest loan and pay them. And that's the number one problem. Your current debtor will never charge you as much interest as all these other people will. And so that bookkeeper basically exchanged bad debt for horrible debt and put me in debt with the IRS. But we got it all paid, but here was the crazy part. The IRS, 941s are non-bankruptable debt. 941s cannot be negotiated. So if you work for me, you'll see these commercials. If you owe the IRS, blah, 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 you can get it. You can't. If you owe the IRS money and it's on your personal income tax, then yes, you can negotiate that. If you owe the IRS money on behalf of your employees in the form of a 941 payroll tax, you cannot negotiate that. It's non-negotiable, and you can't bankrupt it. It never goes away until the statute of limitations is 10 years. And I still remember one day I fell to my knees in my garage and I just started heaving. I lost it. And I was like, God, why? God, why? God, why? I'm a Christian, and so I was sitting here praying, going, what did I do to deserve this? And I had realized I'd had some arrogance. I had figured some things out. I thought I had the world by the tail. Not 100%, but I definitely thought I had some things figured out. And those thoughts, in combination with me hiring the wrong guy, set me up for failure. And this is the thing, a lot of people who have not been in business very long, especially since '08, don't realize it's all great until it's not. And people don't actually conceptualize that. The until it's not. And when life is just going up, 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 and when it's not, it doesn't just go downhill, it goes straight down.
Amen.
And it is a scary freaking feeling. And people who have not been through it, it is very easy to judge others and go, oh, blah, blah, blah. But when you emotionally hit that, you get dumber by the minute. It is the scariest thing in the world. And I remember going through it, and it messed me up. I mean, it scarred me for life. And then I read this book by Ron Holiday called The Obstacle is the Way. I kept trying to borrow my way out of the hole. And I read this book, and this book says, basically Marcus Aurelius is trying to figure out how to deal with the enemy, and he can go through the mountains, everybody will starve and freeze to death. He can go through the sea, and they'll run out of food. And, the only way is to go through the enemy, and that's the obstacle, so the obstacle is the way. And there's a lot more to the book than that. I'm dumbing it down, but I still remember reading that book, and I sleep on the driver's side of the bed. My wife sleeps on the passenger side. And I get up, and I'm marching around the bed, and I'm like, I'm pissed, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And my wife was like, okay, whatever, fine, go for it. And all of a sudden, I got my piss and vinegar back, and I'll tell you what happened was I finally got angry again. And something happens. When you've been beat up and beat up and beat up, you start to lose judgment and clarity of thought. But when you're truly angry, not losing your temper, but angry, you're like, dude, that guy's been taking advantage of me for years. That girl's been blah, blah, blah. And you get this, like, you kind of bow up.
I know what you're feeling, yeah.
In that is where clarity of thought rushes in, and you see it all. And I still remember, I needed a chip on my shoulder. Like Michael Jordan used to talk about that. And that series, The Last Dance, I think it's on Netflix or Prime. And he used to talk about this chip. I had a group of bankers come in from a large bank. I won't say who, but their headquarters is in Birmingham, Alabama. And they drove up, and they all met with me to turn me down. And my debt payments were $125,000 a month. Like, it was really bad. And they came in, and it was like I was sitting here, and they're all signed up here and lined up here. And this head VP guy or head president leans forward in this couch. He sat in my office 30 seconds, and he leans forward, and he's like, hey, man, I'm just going to let you know that we're not going to loan you money. You will be out of business. And I just wanted to come tell you, in person, this is a wasted effort, blah, blah, blah. No bank will lend to you. And I remember locking my jaw and the muscles flexing. And I remember a tear coming down my eye, and I was embarrassed. I didn't want to wipe it off because I didn't want to expose that I had a tear, but I also didn't want him to see the tear. And so I felt trapped. And all I remember were 3 words: I'll show you.
Yeah.
And that was the chip, man.
Did you say it out loud?
No.
You just felt it.
But I've called a bunch of bankers since then. And they call me wanting my deposits.
That's right. That's right.
And all of a sudden, I just got pissed. And I remember praying for my son one night, and he said, Daddy, are we going to have enough money to pay our bills tonight? And that rocked me. I was like, oh my gosh, he's listening to everything. He was 8 years old. And it just started hitting me. And that's when I started saying to myself, there's got to be a better way than what I'm doing. This is not the right way. And I started holding people accountable, started being a better leader. I mean, I had employees blackmailing me. One of them found out that I had not paid some of my retirement matching on time. Turns out I had until December 31st to pay it, so I wasn't even on the employer portion, so I wasn't even legally in trouble yet, but I didn't know that, and threatened me and blackmailed me into giving him extra vacation time, putting a furnace in his house, or he was going to go turn me into the labor board and continue to work for me. I mean, all this crap. I had so many bad things happen. I had the state of Tennessee come, and they were 4 hours away from locking the doors of my building. They were driving down here, and I was able to conjure up the money last minute and everything. They ended up breaking out and doing a totally separate thing on a Post-it note for me at the state. None of it was on a computer because they all just knew me. And that was the one thing I have to give myself credit for. I was searching some old emails the other day, and I stumbled upon an email in 2013, 2014. And I'm basically begging for grace. But I'm owning it the whole time. And I'm not running from it. you emailed me on Thursday, this is Tuesday, blah, 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 blah. And that's the one thing I got to give myself credit for is I communicated and I faced the music the entire time, which was really scary and really, really hard. I just wish I had not borrowed my way out. I wish I'd forced the debtors who had the original debt to keep it. I could have been out in a year, turn it around. But I didn't. Out of all that pain and suffering, I learned how to use a balance sheet really, really good. Yeah. I learned a lot of tricks on P&Ls. I learned so much that then later when I did a course on finance, it came with 32 college credits because what I knew was tattooed on my ass from pain. What everybody else knew was from what they read in a book, and that's totally different. That's shallow. What I knew, I had depth. I understood in a way, I had a pain with that was so great that they couldn't comprehend. And I'll never forget those moments. And they made me into the businessman I am today, that I can look at financials. And I'm a sales, marketing type personality. I am not a numbers type personality. And now I would put myself against anybody on numbers, because I've just forced myself to be good at it and just crunch them and crunch them and crunch them and crunch them. But I never would have if it wasn't for the pain. The pain drove it all.
You run a mastermind for coaches here in, out of your offices here in Franklin, and I had the pleasure of being a part of your weekend that you did. You do three of those per year. I went to one in May, and one of your preps, like preparation notes that you gave all the attendees, is bring your P&L, and I brought my P&L. And then at the meeting, there's 20 people in this room, 20 plus people in this room, and you said, okay, whose P&L are we going to analyze first? And I thought, well, I came to learn something. I know one person besides you. I know one person personally in this room, which I wish he hadn't been there because I don't want to reveal anything to people who know me. Everybody else is strangers. Yeah. And so you went over my P&L, and you pointed out a few things, and that meeting has changed the way I operate my finances. So, but even though you taught me, it came from your experience, but I went through not nearly as many zeros as you're dealing with, but certainly millions of dollars on my side in the past year. But because I went through that, I was looking for somebody to show me how to do this. And so you put my P&L up there in front of all these strangers and said, this is wrong. You got way too many expenses on this line. You need to move COGS. This goes in the COGS. And I'm here to tell you that my cash, just since then, has more than tripled in terms of what's available. And I'm sorry that I have to say that I did this, but I'm happy that I was able to do it. I think I paid $20,000 last month on debt.
That's awesome.
Just extra, which I would not have been able to do 8 months ago before I came to that event, because I'm paying attention, and I'm paying attention to it. So I'm paying attention to it because of the pain I went through, very similar to what you did. Yeah. And I hope that I can only become half as good at numbers.
Oh, you could be as good.
But now, what I think is interesting about your story is that you personally weren't struggling financially. It was personally you were fine, but as the business caused this huge implosion.
Correct. I mean, I had my health. I still had my wife. I didn't tell you this last part. I took the last we had $75,014 and so many pennies in our personal savings account. I took the last 75 grand out without asking her.
No.
Yeah, that went over great. I still remember this little 5'2" woman with this bright red face and bright blue eyes with her finger in my face telling me that I had disappointed her and our family and robbed from our family. It was as a man, it's like the biggest dagger ever I'm having to pull out. So that's super tough. I chose to sell our home. The IRS couldn't make us. And at that point, we had everything in payment plans, had it all turned around. And I was like, you know what? I already had my coaching company. And I was like, you know what? I could knock out most of this right now and just sell my house because I had so much equity. All right, we're going to sell our house. I just didn't want to take the time to have to pay it all off. Yeah. I wanted it gone now so I could restart. And we did. And then we were living in a rental house until 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I was netting a lot. And I was still living in a rental house, sitting on a lot of cash. And people were shocked. They couldn't believe it. But that took going through that much pain and having that level of discipline to be able to stay in a rental home and tell people, yeah, it's the house I rent. And they're looking at me going, looking at my cars in the garage. They know, they see how big my enterprise is. And I stayed there for 5 whole years. Even when I could have bought a house, a $10 million, $15 million house, $20 million house, I still didn't. I stayed in that rental house. And I think going through that level of pain drives a level of discipline that you normally won't have. Like, I'll feel guilty buying a $200 shirt and will be hung up on it. $300 pair of shoes and be hung up on it. You know, I can't get, past it. I'll have $2 million in cars sitting in my garage, all paid for with cash, and will feel guilty. And I don't know, what about this? What about, I don't know. It's a weird scenario where you find yourself hung up on certain things from your past. It's like you can take the boy out of the trailer, but you can't take the trailer out of the boy. I lived in single wides a lot of my life. And now I don't even know how much real estate I got. 75, 85 million, something like that. I don't know. I have to go back and count it. I don't know what it's worth. But if you just keep your head down and keep doing the basics, and everybody's like, Aaron, how do you make money? How do you make so much? It's the basics. The basics are what make you money. Text somebody back, email somebody back, call someone back. Those are the 3 top ones. Just be prompt and jump on that stuff, and you'll move the needle faster than anybody else, because no one ever does.
Yeah.
No one calls anybody back, no one texts anyone back, and no one emails anyone back. They hand it off to their assistant. I still to this day don't have an assistant, and I've got one I'm hiring on Saturday. It'll be my first ever after 25 years experimenting with it. We'll see how it goes. But I just run it that, my whole thing, especially after being stolen from, is it's all about reputation. My reputation precedes me. So they're like, oh, you're Aaron? Okay, yeah. You want to do the deal? We'll cut out these other guys. Let's do it with you. Like, they know if I say it, it doesn't matter if my personal guarantee's on it. They know if I say it, it's going to happen because of my reputation. And that's because my reputation got so tarnished when I got stolen from, I said, never again. And I pursued that, and I went after it. And because of that, I looked at everything that happened, because it was rough personally, dude. It was horrible. So yeah, it didn't happen to me personally, it happened to my business, but I took it all home.
Yeah.
I robbed my home, life from all the money we could to put it back into the business. And my wife for years said all this business does is take and take and take. It doesn't ever make. And to prove my wife wrong, build her dream home, that was a big deal. I bought a 34-acre piece of property with a 10,000 square foot house on it and tore it down to the ground right here, right in Franklin, Tennessee, and rebuilt it. And as a promise to my wife, as a promise to her. And that was the big kicker, like having to make my wife feel like she's number one and I'm going to turn this around, and she will always be able to depend on me. I will never be made out to be the weak provider that I looked like back then.
I love that. Listen, I'm 100% with you on that. That's very good. What happened to your bookkeeper and that guy?
Bookkeeper, I know where she's at now.
Now she made a conscious mistake, although not with the intent.
Yeah, she wasn't trying to harm me. She was scared.
But the other dude did.
He did.
Yeah.
I actually tried to put him in jail.
Really?
Presented an inch-thick book. I ended up with the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, the TBI, the FBI, the City Police Department, the Tennessee Highway Patrol, and the IRS all in my office at the same time.
Whoa.
I understood all of them but the IRS. I said, why are y'all here? And they said, oh, well, you would have made money and paid tax. So we have a vested interest in this. Oh. They came back and told me this inch-thick document was too complicated, no grand jury could understand it, and to dumb it down. I didn't know how to dumb it down. I was like, how do I dumb it? This is what happened. Couldn't figure it out. And I finally said, you know what? I got to get about saving my company. Screw this, which was hard for me. That taught me a lot of lessons in forgiveness. I didn't want to forgive the guy. And that taught me a lot. And so I finally was like, all right, I'm just going to move on. He never got prosecuted because the statute of limitations eventually ran up. And then back to whenever I told you that story about me losing it in the garage. What caused me to lose it in the garage way back, probably in, 13 or 14, when all the weight was hitting me, I'd met with, bankruptcy attorneys. Like, I'm cutting out a lot of detail. I'd met with a lot of people, a lot of mentors that were like, I don't know what to tell you, Aaron, you're screwed. And when you keep getting told no from all your heroes and people that you pay to give you advice, you're like, what the heck? I mean, I remember the bankruptcy attorney going, hey, dude, when Kmart filed bankruptcy their first time, or Sears, they had all the money and all the attorneys and the judges. They closed overnight and reopened the next day, and they were reorganized and they were up and running.
Let's take a quick break to thank our amazing sponsors for making this podcast possible.
As an entrepreneur running multiple businesses, effective communication is critical for me. I've tried all kinds of outreach tools over the years, but none have compared to Dubb when it comes to driving real results, and that's DUBB. I was one of Dubb's first users. I think it was like 7 years ago when they first launched, and I've been a loyal customer ever since. Dubb has completely transformed my prospecting, my client communication strategy, and here's why. Dubb makes it simple to record personal video messages and share them across email, SMS, social media, and more. And this brings back the face-to-face connection that's missing from most digital outreach. And what happens is my prospects instantly feel more engaged when they can put my face to my name. I end up building a stronger relationship faster by incorporating these video messaging into my workflow. Dubb also provides tracking and analytics so I can see exactly who engages with my videos and how they respond to them. Their automation and their CRM features help me nurture leads and close more deals. I mean, that's what we're trying to do, right, as entrepreneurs. So after using Dubb for years, I absolutely can't recommend them enough. I mean, Ruben, those guys over there are phenomenal. I love Darius. They're all great guys. It's become an invaluable tool that I depend upon to run my businesses efficiently. And if you want to boost your outreach and see amazing results like I have, head over to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. That's DUBB, and you can try it completely for free. No credit card required. You get the first 50% off your first 2 months, by the way, if you use my link. You need to take your prospecting to the next level with video messaging from Dubb. They're my go-to sales communication platform for nearly 7 years and counting. Go to therealjasonduncan.com/Dubb. Try it for free, no credit card required, and you'll get 50% off your first 2 months as well.
Thanks for listening to our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
You're not a priority. You're going to have to close 2 weeks. That's not going to happen for you. And then a judge is going to decide all this. And I was like, oh my gosh. Oh, and by the way, you can't bankrupt that. The only way out is to pay it or to let the statute of limitations run out. And so what happened to me at this point is it's probably a year and a half into it. So it's probably 8 and a half years left. And so this revelation of if I don't outperform this, I'm going to lose almost a decade of my life, that started washing over me. 10 years. And even though it was 8 and a half, my brain just kept telling me 10. And I just went inward and just started caving. You never could have told me I could have made enough money to get out of the hole. My brain couldn't go there. And to this day, I think the only reason I went through all of it was so I could stand on stage and help everybody else, because my situation was worse than everybody else's.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. So when this all happened about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And today, and you were earning $1 million plus a year personally. You've continued to be a very high income earner today, but in 2016 is when you started the coach at Shop Fix Academy, right?
Yep, 2016. 2016 I started making material. 2017 is when it officially started.
And you were, if I'm doing the timing right, that's probably about the time you actually made the decision to cut all that out, pay it off, and move on, right? Were you clear?
I would say 2015, 2012 I get stolen from, until 2015 was the worst 3 years ever. And if you've never been through really bad financial, it feels like physical, like there's a major sickness in your body. Like I can't describe the level of stress that comes with that. And then in 2015, the end of 2015 is when I made the U-turn emotionally and got pissed off and got angry and started performing again, started making money again. And then 2016 is when I started working on Shop Fix Academy. In 2017, I launched Shop Fix Academy. In 2017, I also sold my house because I was like, you know what? By now, I've made the U-turn. I've paid off a lot of this debt. I'm in a great spot, but I can just wipe it all and just write this check. I still didn't have it all paid off. back in 22, because all of them converted the IRS converted all my loans to payment, or I'm sorry, all my debts to payment plan loans that went all the way to the statute of limitations. He did me a solid and gave me as low payment as possible, which I would tell anybody to do. You can always pay it off early. And so I had millions in the bank, and I probably still owed the IRS, I don't know, I had north of $5 million cash in the bank at the time, and probably still owed the IRS $200,000 back in 20. And I was like, my bookkeeper was twisting my arm to get me to come off of a couple $100,000 to pay it off. Because I was so paranoid, the IRS agent told me they could come back after you at any point and find something else, always sit on cash. Like, he eventually became my friend. And I would tell everybody, I would befriend the guy. I would not hire an IRS attorney. I would make it my job to learn the legal loopholes and rules. I did. The agent will tell you the truth, and anything you don't think is the truth, you just call up and ask for another agent and run it by them. I called every agent I could and would get their badge number or their agent number, whatever, and get all the info and take notes. It was crazy. And to this day, I still help clients who sign up and are in bad trouble. But 2017, I launched ShopFix. My stores at this point were really starting to kick into gear because, again, I got pissed off, started holding people accountable. In 17 through 24, my shops just continued to explode. Just really doing well there. Really doing well there this year. And then ShopFix, again, also just kept continuing to blow up and blow up, blow up, and the profits continued to blow up and blow up and blow up until, today, if I turn my P&Ls in or my tax returns into a bank, they don't believe it because it's just gone so fast, and now it's just so freaking large. So what I do now is I try to be helpful to others, downplay it as much as possible, and not be arrogant and be as humble as I can, and know that it's always great until it isn't, and I've never forgotten that.
Are you making more money now through owning the shops or running the mastermind? The ShopFix Academy?
I would say the shops and ShopFix Mastermind are close, but I have a lot of ancillary businesses that are a part of ShopFix. Like, I train service advisors, train technicians, and some other investments for some other companies, and all of that combined now outruns the shops. So yeah, it's doing very well. At this point, every year I net well over 8 figures every year, and the goal right now is to really give back and bring my kids into the fold, teach them about money, and make sure they understand. Because at the end of the day, if my kids don't understand wealth, I'm not leaving a legacy. I'm just leaving money in spoiled brats. And a lot of my kids, 2 of my kids grew up in the single wide for a while. The other 2 only knew 4,000 square foot houses and then bigger. I don't want those kids, especially my kids now that live in our really large house, I don't want our kids to only remember that. I want them to remember where they came from. And that's important to me. Don't know that I'll always be able to pull it off, but every year we have a giving day, and they all come into my office, and we give millions, and they all get a choice, and we write it on a dry erase board. I have a whole process for how I do it. And I really try to get kids engaged, and I get my kids engaged. And you got to make it fun. Like, my youngest has to put the stamps on everything and lick the envelopes closed. My middle wants to write all the addresses on the envelopes. My son wants to run the dry erase board. My other daughter wants to fill out the checks because she's got good handwriting. I sign all the checks, and my wife is sitting there telling everybody her opinion on all of it. So we do it as a family. As my kids get married, we bring them in, and the kids, they'll make a decision on a $500,000 donation, and they'll be the ones that make a call on it. And so we really believe in teaching people to give and to be generous, and mindset. I'm a real big personal development guy. I teach a lot of personal development. I have my own angle on it, and I know that I'm giving my kids a head start by doing this, the right way. But don't get me wrong, they get bored out of their mind, like, are we done yet? Because it's hours long, and they want to go to the movies with their friends or whatever, because it's right before Christmas. It's like Christmas break, so. Yeah.
So when you look back at all the success that has piled up over the years, and you've gone through the crap, which I very much appreciate you sharing today because it helps me get better perspective on the crap that I've been through because we've been through very similar situations. It's eerily similar, just different outcomes and different players. But if you said this one thing, Jason, has been the key that unlocks success for me through the whole thing, what's the one thing that's kept you able to be successful?
Take responsibility for everything. I get done with an employee meeting, I jump up, I clean the table, I throw all the trash away. I clean the dry erase board. I make sure that everybody's supposed to be there when they're supposed to be there. Everybody's good when they're heading home. I took 11 guys riding side-by-sides this weekend, all from, guys from my church, basically. Worked on all the machines for 2 weeks beforehand to get them all ready. Had my farm manager help me get them all loaded up. And then I took them all out there. I bought all the food. I paid for the house. I paid for all the gas. I covered everything. If I'm running my shop fix events, 2,000 people in an event, I'm running around, popping my head in all the classes, listening to the speakers, making sure everything sounds good. At the end of the day, take freaking responsibility. If you want to get paid like the CEO or the president or the owner, step up and take responsibility.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to get paid like the CEO and they want to do the janitor's job. And it doesn't fly. You got to do the janitor's job and you got to do the responsibility piece that the CEO has to do. No one wants to take responsibility. And so I take responsibility and I chase it. I run to it. When there's something wrong with an employee and I find out about it, I'm there in an hour. I don't let it fester for 3 or 4 weeks where I figure out what I'm going to say. I'll wing it. Nothing trumps speed. And since money loves speed, I know that I must go as fast as possible. And I'm a big believer in as fast as possible because I don't get more time in life. I only get X amount of time. And so I'm a big believer in not letting, like, let's say I heard bad news now. I want to deal with that bad news as early as possible. Otherwise, if that bad news isn't dealt with, it rolls until 2 p.m. the next day or 4 p.m. the next day. Well, then now I've ruined a day and a half of my life. And I only have so many days on this planet. I don't want to ruin any of them. My whole goal with getting successful is to have no stress, right? To alleviate stress. And so people think that responsibility as actually adding stress, it actually removes it. And it's a beautiful thing, but I could talk on that for an hour and a half, but there's a lot more to it. But I think if there's one thing, start being responsible where you're not.
How do you define success? What does that mean to you, that word?
Have more friends than I need, more family than I need, more money than I need, more health than I need.
By that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
Yes.
Well, congratulations on your success.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of money, but they don't have a family. I've been married 25 years, happily married 25 years. I got 4 amazing kids. Everybody that meets them is like, these kids are rock stars. My son works in the family business, and I said, you got to work twice as hard. Do you remember why? And he goes, yep, my last name's Stokes. And my daughter's a real estate agent, getting out there killing it, just graduated from Belmont. My other 2 are still in school, or high school. And I think my biggest accomplishment is raising our family inside of all that stress. And I look at everybody else. I know a lot of people that are successful. Lost their marriage, lost their kids, never get the relationship back with their kids. And I think you got to be able to have it all. And of course, the most important, you got to know who your maker is and have that relationship and understand that you don't own any of this anyway.
That's right.
You're just taking care of it.
So what's your best piece of advice? You already talked about taking responsibility, so we're going to set that aside for a second. But to entrepreneurs who are listening to the show, you've been through a lot. You make very, very good money that most people, like it's a lottery win to get to 1 year of Aaron Stokes' income for a lot of people in their mind. So what would you say is your best piece of advice?
I've got so many go-tos. Which go-to should I? I got so many lessons that are kind of like my go-tos that I teach. I would say, believe in your future more than your present. Your present Your present has all of today's constructs, all of today's stresses, all of today's problems in it. Your future has none of that. You aren't thinking about, oh, someday when I make $1.5 million a year, I won't have this problem. Or when I make $15 million, I won't have this problem. Or when I make $25 million, I won't have this problem. Or when I make $35 million, I won't have this problem. Let me tell you, you will still have that problem. Problems don't go away. You just have either good problems or you have bad problems. It's just another zero on the end of it. So life's the exact same. You can have a car payment on your truck, or you can have a truck paid for with cash. You'll still have a wife that's mad at you if you're home late. It doesn't change. And a lot of people think that stuff changes. And I think that when you can believe in your better future than your current past, you start to make decisions differently. So I play the long game. I'm patient for my money, but I collect more money. A lot of people will do, like for my coaching, I could do a discounted pay up front for a year. I don't do it. I'm month to month, no contract. Why? One, I don't like the pressure of sales on my team and on the member. Two, I don't like this big annual stress ball event that comes with it from all the other stuff on the outside. Three, I don't like the fact that if I go that route and I do this high pressure sales pitch and I win or I lose, the client now is in this advantaged position where they're getting it for a deal because I said, hey, on stage, if you do X, Y, Z, I'll knock X amount off. I don't need the money. I've been saving my money. So because of that, this person is in a good spot. They're, they can keep paying me monthly and it's going to come out to more, and we'll let cash flow be the reason for it for them. They don't have to come off a bunch. But the benefit to me is I make more. So I'm willing to wait on the money. And I think, and here's the big thing. When someone looks at their situation and goes, Aaron, I just don't see a way, it's because they're looking at their present. Your present does not indicate your future success. And I hate it when people do that. It has nothing to do with if you look at my life, there's no way you could predict this. There's no way. It's crazy. I remember the first year that I probably went from like $1.5 million, and I think I netted over $5 million the next year. It just went boom, boom. And the banks literally were like, there's no freaking way. Not banks, I'm sorry. It was bank. The loan committees at other banks. So then I had to log in front of them and turn my laptop around. And then when they see the cash in the checking account, there ain't no denying it at that point. So I had to set this thing up in a way that I was able to show this to them. And as I saw their amazement, it caused me to relive my amazement from 18 months prior, because I see it on their face and I go, holy crap, this is a big deal. And so I was like, what the hell? And so in that moment, I'm like kind of losing it myself. It kind of makes me relive it. And I go, what was I worried about when I was trying to get my wife a new car, or whenever I was building this, or whenever I was building that for this shop, and when I was thinking about buying this boat, what was I scared of? And so it causes me to reflect and look back. And I think so many owners of businesses, or even W-2ers who want to be a business owner, they screw up and they use today's knowledge and today's experiences of their life for all dreaming going forward. And that's just crap. The pain you've been through and the pain you will go through of starting a business is what will make you into an amazing business owner. And you got to trust the freaking process and lean into the future. Start believing your future self is smarter than your present self. Let your future self give you advice. If all this worked out, what would your future self tell you to do right now? It'd tell you to do X, Y, and Z. Okay, well then go do what that is. Don't do this other thing. Because if you do this other thing, you're actually setting yourself up for failure. Trust your future self. And a lot of people, they just can't wrap their head around that. They're not willing to lean into that. It's always the riskier deal. It's always the more patient deal. It's the longer deal. But it always is the thing that shows you as the hero out of nowhere, and everybody comes up to you like, dude, you're like an overnight success. You're like, yeah, it only took 25 years. And Steve Jobs is the one that really coined that little phrase there, and it's true. No one pays attention to that just slow, hard work. It's in the background. And one of my biggest strengths is perseverance. One of my biggest weaknesses is perseverance. If I had closed that car lot quicker, I would be, I wouldn't have gone through all that pain. But because I didn't, I did go through the pain. And why? Because my natural tendency is to persevere, to stick it out. And so that character, strength or flaw, is what put me into this spot. And I remember saying, I'll never tell a bank the truth again, because I told bankers, hey, I've been stolen from this, and this, and they were like, canceling credit lines, rolling them up, converting them to payment plans, taking cash right out of my checking accounts. Like, all the banks freaked out on me because I told the truth. And I remember telling myself, I'll never trust a banker again. I'm past that now. Looking back, of course they did that. That's their job. Their job is to avoid all risk they can. But it didn't take the pain away anymore, any less. It was bad. It stung and it hurt. And so my biggest advice to everybody would be, live from your future self. Your future self has all the answers. It's going to look at this situation and tell you. I had some great advice from a mentor who's now passed. He said to me, Aaron, always remember how this will be retold. Not what happened, how it will be retold. And when you think about it that way, like, oh man, I probably shouldn't do this because they're going to think X, Y, Z, even though that isn't what happened. By the time the rumor gets out 5 people, this is what people are going to say, so I'm not going to do that. And so I use that to guide my life a lot. How will this be retold? And that keeps me out of the ditch.
Wow. Well, congratulations on all your success, man. I mean,
thank
to go
you.
through what you've been through and to keep your faith, to keep your integrity, and to move through that. Most people lose some or all of what I just mentioned through those hard times. So congratulations.
I appreciate it. My wife is a big part of this, so I give Lydia props. She's the one that, if it wasn't for her, I would not be sitting on this couch. That's for sure.
Well, I want to say a big thank you to you for being here on the show. I know we've been trying
Absolutely.
to make this happen for a while, so thank you for coming out today, being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
This has been a phenomenal conversation, and I hope everybody pays attention to what you said and takes advice from you.
Cool.
So thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, there you have it, another very successful entrepreneur with his journey to success. And think about the numbers that we talked about in the show. Go back and listen to this again. How much money he was making, how much money there was at stake with the IRS and the debts and all that was going on, and yet still maintained his sanity and integrity and his faith through that. Even in the times that were tough, even in times when he talked about the stress just completely making you insane and you can't think straight, you become dumber by the second. Like, I've been there, I know that. And I bet some of you listening to the show have been there as well. Just know that there's your future self sitting on the other side going, it ain't that bad. You're going to be all right. It's going to be okay. But make good decisions throughout the process. So thank you for listening to the show today. Big thanks to Smokers Abbey here in Gallatin, Tennessee, for letting us use their smoke shop here in Gallatin, downtown Gallatin, for our recording place today. It's Joshua Stumps, the proprietor here. Big thanks to Joshua and his team for opening up the shop to let us come in and record today. Make sure you tune in again next time when I talk with yet another very successful entrepreneur about his or her journey to success. And listen to the voiceover guy at the end. He's got something special for you. Until next time, I'm the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners. Attention business owners. Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.